out to the media just some tips that will be helpful for you to include in a news release. So I will share my screen with you. I don't have a fancy slide, so I just have a Word document, and I can share this with everybody at the end, or I'll share it with Betsy and maybe she can get it to all of you, or you can screen capture this if you'd like. But these are just 7 tips when you are putting together a news release. Whether you plan to put a news release together today or maybe sometime in the future, I would, 1, start compiling a media distribution list immediately. You don't have to wait until it's your turn to send out a news release, but it is important to have that distribution list ready when you're ready, when it's your time to put a news release out to the media. And so compile that distribution list and send out a news release when you have something big to announce. It doesn't have to be it's hard for me to say what would be a good news story, because sometimes a really small story can be a really interesting story if there's something unique to it. So if it's a really small event that you're doing, but it has a really unique aspect to it, send out a news release. And just throw it out there and see what sticks. You may get somebody to pick it up. Important to keep in mind, keep your news release succinct, but put in important details. You don't want to write a story for the media. You don't want to write an entire story with quotes, and some people do that and then send it to the media thinking they'll just copy and paste that. That's not what we would want to do. But what we want is to see the important details in a news release that say who, what, when, where, and why. What's happening, who's there, where is it, when is it? You'd actually be surprised that we get a lot of news releases that forget one of those important things, like the dates or the time or the location. So if you have the who, what, when, where, and why section in it, that's what we need, with a sentence up top that says, here's what's happening, and then a paragraph down low that says, here are some extra details about this. Be sure to include some statistics about your organization and what you do for the community. We don't know every nonprofit as a media entity. We know a little about a lot of things, but we don't necessarily know what your organization does. So be sure to include a line or a snapshot of what you did in your community recently. You served so many meals, you did this, this is why we should be paying attention to you. Attachments, the fewer the better, but be very selective with them. If you're going to attach something, I have an example news release down here. As you can see, this is just a random one. It's from the Idaho Humane Society, but I picked it because it did have some elements in here that I'm trying to highlight. They had an attachment, which is the same thing that they put in the body of their email. Please don't just put an attachment and say, see our news release in the attachment. Media, just like anybody, we're a little adverse to opening attachments from strangers. If we don't know who you are, haven't heard from you in a while, I may not open your attachment. So it's best if you put it in the body of your email, the same as it is in your attachment. Where am I? Oh, and also if you do put an attachment, this just happened to me today, where somebody didn't put the information in the body of their email, and they directed me to open their attachment. And guess what? It was a cloud-based attachment that I didn't have permission to access. So please don't do that. That's why you put your information If you're going to attach something, make sure that information is in the body of your email. Like I said, I read thousands and thousands of emails, sometimes in a week. I'm just glancing at your information, to be frank. I'm not looking at every single thing that you put in there. So that's why you have to be succinct. You have to have the important information in, and you have to make it easy for me to copy and paste and put it into our planner, because that's what I'm going to do. Is if I see your email and it's all here and it's the way it should be, I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to place it into our planner for story consideration on the date that's most important for this event or for the time frame that this is going to be happening. Okay, yes, I'll send this these notes out to Betsy and she can send them to you. And then let's see, where are we? We're in number 4. Photos are good to send with your email. I'd keep it short. I'd give it 1 or 3 emails, or sorry, 1 or 3 photos, and just put them in as attachments, or you can provide a link to, like a Dropbox account or something. They're good. Make sure that they're more than just a person standing there. Make sure there's something that's visual. Maybe it's your office exterior with the logo on it or something, or the event that you're talking about from last year with all the people doing stuff. But just give us a few photos. And flyers are not necessarily media friendly. I know that that's something that you probably are sharing to other people, but as far as a flyer goes, like these down here, this is not something that was I was highlighting as a positive on this one. Flyers don't really, I'm not going to grab those flyers and post them on TV. So a photo would be better. Links are important. Down here, number 6 here. You can put links in your email. It's preferable to do it, but don't overdo it. Some people put a link in every single sentence and it's a different link, and I'm not going to go through all those links. I'm just not. But if you have 1 to 2 or 3 links that are relative to your event, great, put them in here. A quick tip though, like I said, I'm copying and I'm pasting this information into our planner, as are other people that read our news release email. But if it's a hot link, or sorry, a hyperlink, where you highlight a word and you put the link inside that word, those don't copy into our planner. So I prefer if you put them in full, like this, for example. See, they didn't shorten it, they didn't hyperlink it, they just put the entire link into their email. That way I can copy and paste this whole thing into our planner, and there it lives, and we can use that link later. So lastly, here, don't put everything into your news release. I'm sorry, do put everything relative into your news release, and don't ask for the media to reply back to you to get more details. That's just one, annoying. I don't have time again to when people do that, I'm sure they're trying to get an idea of what media might be interested in this. But for us, when I'm trying to be efficient in my day, I'm not looking to reply to a bunch of people that say, I may or may not be interested in this event. Please tell me more about it. Just put all that information in your news release so that the media can, you're more likely to get media at your event if you just put it all in there without requiring an RSVP or contact me for more details. So I say that because that is something that happens quite a bit. And if you don't hear back from the media, it might be because that person was just doing something else as they're reading emails, and they don't have time to reply because they may not even know we'd be interested in going there or not. So I said a lot, but as far as this news release example that I shared, I just wanted to show what I think is valuable. It's short. It has a succinct headline, sentence at the very top that says what this is, It does have some where, when in here. It doesn't necessarily have the who, what, when, where, why bullet points that you could include, but it does have a couple bullet points about what they're talking about. It does have a link that is full in there. And then it has a little bit about who, since June 1st, they have adopted out 764 pets. And, it's just something that we can use to say, okay, this is a legit place. In case I'd never heard of the Idaho Humane Society, now I know who they serve, what they're doing, what their event is. Great. Copy, paste, put it into our planner. And then when the time comes up that this is for, one of our producers will see it in our planner, and then they very well might reach out to you and say, hey, let's do more on this story. So that is what I've got. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Well, and actually, Gary, I'm gonna go ahead and hop in here really quick. I'm gonna piggyback off of you, if that's okay. Is that okay, Betsy, if I go ahead and kind of tag team this with Gary? Okay, great. I'm getting a thumbs up. So Gary's list. Gary, I'm so sorry. I know you just stopped sharing, but can you pull it back up again? Because I do want to speak to a couple of things that you have on your visual. I don't have visuals. I'm just going to talk here. But what I do love about the example that Gary shared, and by the way, I echo everything he said, 100% spot on. Oh, and I'm sorry, and really quick before I dive into this, I'm the lifestyle show host here at KTB. I also oversee all the lifestyle content, and previously I was community director for the ABC affiliate for 10 years in Sacramento. So the information I'm going to share with you too is going to piggyback off of the editorial information that Gary just shared with you, but also give you some more compelling ideas as well when it comes to not only Idaho Gives, but potential future campaigns and partnerships with media, and how you can all work together actually to benefit one another as well. So on this press release though, like Gary pointed out, what's great is that it's simple. As mentioned, we're all moving really super fast. So if you can create like a compelling headline, something that, it's not just, breast cancer fundraiser, not something general, but maybe something like about how it's impacted locally. So consider your community and your audience when you're writing these press releases, because they are also marketing, right? You're trying to get organizations to invest in your organization and give you that airtime. So you want to make sure that when you're doing that headline and we're cruising through those 8 million emails, we're looking for something that we know is going to have what I like to call the human element. And so if you can do a pretty compelling headline, I think that catches attention really well. And also the example that Gary's sharing, it's easy, it's simple, it's bullet pointed. I'm a big fan of bullet points. When press releases come in and it's like a block paragraph, that really takes time to dive through and read through. And again, it goes to that efficiency point that Gary was making, where we want to be able to look at something and go, okay, great. There's a simple sentence on top, like Gary pointed out. I get the gist of this. Oh, here's the 2 really compelling points of this event. Bullet point, bullet point. And then the additional information that Gary was talking about, the who, what, when, where, why. Back to that human element, when you're creating that message for your press release, right? And you really want to have something compelling. It's not just about sharing those bullet point information, because that's the first point that we're going to go to say, hey, is this worth, is this interesting to not only us, but our audience that we're sharing this with? But trying to find that piece of information that really makes what you're doing stand out. So say, for instance, you're doing some kind of cancer fundraiser, or you have a cancer organization that you really want people to participate and donate to for Idaho Gives. Just stating what you are and what you do is important. The statistics on how you've helped the audience is important. But what's really going to make you stand out is if you can bring something to the table that differentiates you from the other organizations that are doing the same type of ask and are doing a very similar, like statistics, right? So what would really separate is that human element. So if you can bring to the table perhaps somebody who's either benefited from your organization and has had that life journey to really kind of show that proof in the pudding of the impact that you're making in the community, that can really be that little extra nudge that ends up giving you that opportunity to have your message shared. And I know that a lot of you have your spokespersons, which is important. It's very important you have someone who's dialed in and can speak credibly about your organization and share that messaging clearly. But whenever you can bring something that's authentic to the table, that's really, really important. And as Gary mentioned, you don't have to write the story in your press release and quote that person, but maybe in a bullet point, when you're trying to say who your campaign is, what you're doing, or what the event is, what the point is, and then mention, survivor so-and-so is available to share their story. Just that note of saying that you have someone on retainer to share that message could be that little extra nudge that's needed for an organization or a broadcast entity to go, oh, you know what? Oh, that sounds great. And you could even go as far as saying, so-and-so's to share their story, was in remission for 5 years, or pregnant mom diagnosed with cancer, survives, baby's born, she's available to talk, something compelling. You always look for that human element. In addition to press releases, I would love to encourage that nonprofits reach out and try to find celebrity representation. And what I mean by that is that if you can find someone credible in the community that is personally invested in your organization's mission, that is just that little extra toe in the door that you can get with an organization or a broadcast medium to help tell your story. And share your message. So say, for instance, Children's Miracle Network was a big campaign I used to run in my last market. We had a number of in-house, on air, and just in the building, people that their families benefited from the Children's Miracle Network support. So every year that we were a part of that campaign, we would have them speak to their personal experiences. And whenever we were doing the telethons and those conversations, those stories would come up on air, donations would just go through the roof. We shared statistics, and that was compelling. That did get a little momentum, but the things that really tugged at the heartstrings were those personal stories, right? So, and I know it's easier said than done, where you're like, well, I don't know anyone in the community, who's on air or that's, a public figure that I know invested in our cause. What you can do is you can research on social. I suggest that listen to your radio stations, watch your TV stations, and then just go on social and look for those talent. They all have social accounts, and you might be surprised that who you discover has a personal passion or a story that pops up on social that aligns with your organization and what you're doing. A great example of that is I worked with an organization called Run for a Safe Haven. And that was in the Sacramento market when I was community director. And what they were founded originally as a nonprofit for Pacific Islander community as a resource for domestic violence and human trafficking. But their mission was such a greater cause. Their mission actually wasn't just for that significant or that population, but also they ended up offering services to the entire community in regards to those two issues. Plus, when they would do their event, they would use it as an educational opportunity to not only talk about their organization and their mission, but they would also use it as a way to educate the community on cultural differences and on equality. It was just this bigger opportunity and this bigger message. It wasn't just their event, but it had legs. And what they did is they found that there was a couple of individuals within the community that had a passion for a number of those different purposes. So it wasn't just for domestic violence, it wasn't for human trafficking, but it was also for cultural diversity. And they identified some of these individuals to represent that. And then when we partnered, it was this great, beautiful array of personal messages that made that campaign in particular really compelling and really strong, because it had multiple avenues of messaging and storytelling and investment. So always look for that human element. Also, what else did I want to share here? Another campaign, there was, if you ever have, because, and so I know I'm encouraging for you to look for those within your, those who've benefited from your organization's mission to represent if possible. I know sometimes that can be hard because sometimes those journeys are personal and it's hard to find someone who's brave or in a position where they're willing to share their experience. But sometimes in your organizations, and some of you may even know exactly what I'm talking about, where you volunteer or you decide to take a job with your organization because you have a personal reason or interest. I've worked with organizations where individuals who actually are the campaign director or campaign assistant who've decided to become a part of that organization because they themselves have had that experience. So if you can't find that person who's benefited from your organization's mission to speak, you can be that voice. And as mentioned, that human element is such a huge deal. Timing, Gary mentioned timing on sending out your press release. That's big. There are so many times that I've received an awesome press release with a great event that we would love to be a part of, but it's too late. Our resources have already been dedicated to something else, or it's stretched. I suggest the timing on sending stuff out for an event, or even just a mission branding statement that you want to send out. Hey, here we are. This is what we're doing. If you have a date though attached to it, do 2 weeks ahead of it. So at least 2 weeks. What I always suggest, depending on the size of what it is that you're trying to build momentum towards and getting coverage for, is treat it like a wedding. Send out a message for a save the date. Hey, just, at the end of this month, get ready for blah, 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 more information to come. My former newsroom, I'm pretty certain Gary might do a similar thing. I know for my show here that if we get something in advance, we'll mark the calendar. And if it's interesting, we'll put it on there as a target. And we'll go, you know what, that might be something that we might want to do. And you just mark it. And then as more information comes in, then we vet, and then we go, you know what, we really want to do this. But even just that heads up is a really big deal, because there's been times where we've had something on the calendar and haven't received additional information, but it was so compelling on that save the date announcement, if you will, that we've reached out because we're like, hey, isn't this coming? We would love to know more about this, and we haven't received anything, and we're a couple weeks out. So doing the kind of the wedding approach, I call it, can be really beneficial. And then, as mentioned, when you have, let's say, an event, make sure that you send that second round of messaging out 2 weeks before, to give time to plan. Because if you give enough buffer, because I know newsrooms are really last minute, right? And sometimes it's just like it lands, we need something today, we're going to go cover it and get it. Even in that regard, if you send it to at least 2 weeks in advance, you might actually get stronger storytelling and more coverage, because that gives more time. If somebody in that newsroom, if somebody on the show, on a lifestyle show, anyone sees it and they're really intrigued and interested, that gives them more time to contact you and to create a really compelling story. And that story in itself is going to have more legs, right? And then that might introduce more opportunity too. So timing is essential, in my opinion. And then lastly, I do just want to share with everyone, well, actually, there's a couple things here really quick. Outside of just a press release, if you are looking for more brand awareness and you are just trying to establish, partnership with the media station, 2 minutes remaining. Okay, sorry, thank you. And you're trying to establish a partnership with a media relationship. It is, and you're trying to get PSA airtime. I strongly suggest seeing if you can get approval for third-party sponsors. I do suggest that, because if there's any opportunity for you to put money behind messaging and branding on any of your missions at any point, it's a benefit and an investment that'll go really, really far. But if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me and I'll explain what I mean further. But just to wrap, I do want to let you know that Idaho Today is doing what is called the Community Corner. And it is just a nice little editorial mention of nonprofits in the area. It'll be like a little quick 30-second shout out is what we call it. And if you do have an event that's coming up, we'll do an interview on the lifestyle show to highlight that event. But if you are interested, this is who we are. This is what we do. If you want to learn more, go here. That's the type of segment that is. And if you are interested in getting your voice out there and you're a 501c3, feel free to email. It's mpaul@ktvb.com because we're currently profiling our community corner. And that's all I got to say about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you, Gary, for all of your insight. Ian just put Melissa's email in the chat. So folks in the southern part of the state, if you want to get on that community corner, then you can email her there. If you have any questions, stick them in the chat. We're going to do a little Q&A after our next set of presentations. So we're kind of switching gears to be like, how does this make your Idaho Gives successful? So we have a couple of nonprofits who did Idaho Gives last year, and they had a successful campaign. So we're going to start with Sagebrush Step Land Trust. So I'm going to kick it off to Kayla and Tina.
Hi, thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. My name is Tina Murphy. I'm the Director of Philanthropy for the Sagebrush Step Land Trust in Southeast Idaho. We serve 7 counties in Southeast Idaho, and we have 6 million acres of service area. Our mission is to protect, connect, and enhance habitat, working lands, and community spaces. We were established in 2004, so we are a fairly young nonprofit. We hold 31 properties that protect over 6,200 acres. Our main office is in Pocatello, Idaho, and if you are ever in our neck of the woods, feel free to stop by. So I'm going to go through really quick a list of questions that was given to us. And first of all, I want to thank Kayla Bass, who is also on this call. Kayla is the administrative assistant for the Land Trust, and basically she was the one-man show who did the campaign last year and responsible for the success. So thank you, Kayla. The one thing after listening to Melissa and Gary speak, it really is important to talk about the storytelling of your campaign. I was just on the IRS site, and if you don't know, Idaho, as of March of this year, has 9,441 nonprofits in the state. So you might think you are competing with a lot, but once you can have your niche and talk about what you do, that pot of money actually becomes larger, and you may be able to inspire somebody who's never given before. So please reiterate, tell your story, tell what makes you special and what you've done. When they asked if when we started advertising or soliciting donations, we actually do that all year round. We participate in Idaho Gives every year. And we talked about some of our donors and some of our board members and asked something that was big for us. If they're going to give a chunk of money, would they mind giving it about this time of the year so we could do that as a matching donation? And I think that's what really was the success to our fund this last year, is we had 4 donors step up and give larger chunks of money. And once you do that, I think once we were able to put that out, it created more trust in people who gave us money, that not only was their money going to be matched, but there was somebody who stepped up to give this amount of money to begin with. And so I think it just creates that little extra element for us. We are always raising for operations. And I meant it when I said if I won the lottery, you all would be getting an operation endowment fund. Because if you write grants, or if you know and you're in charge of money, you know how much fun it is to get money to keep your lights on. So the communications that we utilized, we did Facebook, Twitter, we did an email blast about 2 weeks out. And then we did it closer to the event. And as one of the donors' large chunks run out of money, we said, okay, well, we have another one, and sent that out each time that happened. So we created urgency and we created success at the same time during the campaign. For our peer-to-peer donors, that one didn't work so great for us this year, but I think that's because for our Social media is not as active as we would like it to be. So I think once we beef that up, we may see the peer-to-peer activity actually pick up quite a bit. We hope to. The best advice for the new fundraisers, and this comes from Kayla, and I'm sure everybody will nod their head when you say attend and follow every one of the trainings that you guys put out, because everybody has great nuggets of information that you will glean from it or expound on it. The follow-up information for our donors, we did emails, we did phone calls. You always, especially when you get a new donor, and that's what you'll get with a lot of these events, you want to create membership opportunities if you can. And when you notice that you have people giving back, you know, $25 every year or $50 every year, make sure those are the people that you're paying attention to, because those become your larger donor prospects and possibly your legacy prospects down the road. We did not have participation in events because COVID. We're hoping this year there's something in Southeast Idaho. I know I have attended one of the events in the past, and it was a lot of fun to get everybody in a square and just celebrate all the great things that we're doing. And the last question we had is for importing our new donors into our CRM, our management system. We do have Donor Perfect, so that captures and works a lot with the software that we use already and pulls everything right in. If you're not, you may have to use the old-fashioned spreadsheet that we've all kind of done too. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Kayla or myself. We will certainly be happy to answer questions, and like I said, if you'd like to, please stop by. I think there was I don't know if we had a slide up there. The one thing that we did do was if you go through people's slides and we looked at what people did, like land trusts and other land trusts, and made sure and put people in all of our slides, because people and animals are always good action shots. Our opening shot is of our staff, which we think is very important that people see our staff. And this year, my position is newly created. We didn't have the budget to go out and shoot a new staff shot, so we photoshopped me in, which we think is great because it's kind of like a Where's Waldo. And the people who give in this kind of campaign probably will just love seeing the Where's Waldo shot. It's a little tongue in cheek. So know your audience for this, have fun, and treat it as something that you do year to year. We'll let you follow up. Yeah, membership renewal letters, that did not work. Kayla, I don't know, do you want to chat about those too?
You already did the peer-to-peer fundraising pages, but yeah. Membership letters, people are seeming to fall out of fashion with our donors. So I don't know if you guys want to waste your time with that, but we don't. I think that's all.
So good luck to everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I had a question. If out of all of these things, if you could only do one, which one would you focus on? If you could only do one of your suggestions.
I would say one. I'll answer for one. It might be the same one Kayla does, is get your matching donors. That was the most successful thing. And when you can go back and show your board that, or show your donor what that money helped bring in, the impact is huge. Was that the same one, Kayla, you were going to pick out? Yeah. I would say
huge.
Yeah, just communicate with people after they give too. It's important. They gave to you for a reason. Find out why.
Thank you. We also have some questions before we get to our next one, nonprofit. Emily asks, timeline-wise, when did you start reaching out to major donors for the matching?
Well, we're doing it now. So what is that, like a month in advance?
And we've hit up a few of them. And we actually, what was successful this year too, because it was so successful last year when we said, you know, would you be willing to give a matching chunk again this year. And when they said yes, we said, well, we've increased our goal 25%. Would you be willing to increase your donation? And so far, half of them have done that.
That's awesome. Kelly also asks, what is better, matching or challenge donations?
I don't know if I have an answer for that one.
I'm not sure I know exactly the difference, but we do a 1-to-1 match. So every dollar matches the dollar that somebody else gives, if that helps.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. If you have more questions for Tina and Kayla, put them in the chat and we'll have a little bit more time to answer them later. But with that, we're going to move on to another great nonprofit that had a successful campaign, Valley Mission. So I'm going to hand it off to Carl.
Thank you. And I apologize, I don't have any cool slides. It's been a crazy season. So we'll just answer some questions that we had. My name is Carl Pettit. I am the director here at Valley Mission in Pocatello. Valley Mission is currently operating a food pantry, and we just purchased a building next door to us about 2 years ago. That will allow Valley Mission to expand our services to become an emergency shelter, a laundromat, and then also a transformational living center for folks coming out of the system, the prison system, or folks off the streets that want to get their lives back on track. So last year's Idaho Gives gave us a couple options to really get aggressive, and I'll talk to some of that. We utilize storytelling a lot, in not just in our page with Idaho Gives, but in every social media post and every opportunity we had. We would share a story of a guest or a family that was impacted. We also share stories of our volunteers and how what we did impacted them in their service to our community. We've noticed in this valley recently a very strong collaboration of agencies working together for the common good. I haven't seen a lot of that. I've been here 20 years, and I can tell you the last 2+ years, that has escalated, 3+ years, is escalated to an incredibly encouraging high. And so feeding off of that allows us to share that with other organizations, other people hear that. It's just, storytelling is so much fun. You can capture so much stuff. And it's not just about the people we're serving, but the people that are making that difference. What that also did was allow us to pull in other organizations beyond Idaho Gives to do volunteer work. So we expanded our volunteer base. Our base right now, we probably run about 60 volunteers, 60, 65 volunteers. We do a Wednesday, Thursday operation, about 20+ per day. But what's adding to that volume is the businesses who are now involved, because they caught on to what was going on. They're buying into the vision and mission for what's coming up in the next building. We started pushing Idaho Gives and started talking about some of our donor stuff. Started doing some advertising about 3 to 4 weeks out. So we're the same boat that other agencies are in right now. We're talking to folks right now, beginning to encourage people to start looking at their philanthropic dollars. Where are they going to go? How can they get involved? Where we're at right now with demolition just about being done and getting ready to raise the $1.5 million, or actually raising that right now to do our building. That allows us to really expand kind of our topic of conversation, if you will. Last year, we specifically raised funds just for general operating costs for the food pantry, and began to plant some seeds about demolition costs, about pieces that we're going to need to do, like mold remediation, what those look like. And I think that really also helped raise the amount of dollars we did last year. People saw the bigger ticket items and said, we can get behind that. We really utilize social media channels the most, and emails. Facebook, specifically Facebook and Twitter, were two of our main streams of information that we seem to get a lot of feedback from. Probably going to jump into some other channels this year. I'm not that guy. I'll do the simple stuff. Beyond that, I got other people that'll do that. We also did the same as several agencies did last year with regard to matching donations. We did dollar for dollar. We had a couple of larger donations that really helped to drive some competition here locally. We even had a couple folks who were business folks who said, well, I'm going to talk to my business and push them and start making this little contest. And that was really kind of exciting to watch. Again, it kind of helped drive that camaraderie in our community. So that was kind of cool. We haven't really done much with peer-to-peer donors yet. Something we're just getting ready to dabble into. Technically, this Valley Mission's really only been in existence for about 3 years. So we're still learning we're still learning how to walk, if you will, in some ways. I would have to echo what was shared a moment ago as about his best advice. Get online with some of these trainings, attend the webinars, get the resources that are out there. There's some amazing stuff. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to really do some things. And talking like Gary and Melissa, was it Melissa? So I'm terrible with names. We're talking earlier, you know, you can grab some information and share that information out quickly just by utilizing what the Idaho Nonprofit Center's put together for Idaho Gives, and just recraft some things for your specific event, your specific fundraising issue. One of the things we did for follow-up donors is the day of the gift. We didn't wait till the event was over. We immediately sent out a thank you note that I signed every single one of them, and said, hey, we really appreciate your gift. To the ones who gave large dollars, we really kind of expanded our story a little bit. Matter of fact, for each of those, we gave a specific story about how their dollars are going to impact what's going to happen in the future. So they knew that they had something to look forward to. The one thing I will say I learned that I did not do well from that is I did not make a note to say, okay, for Betsy, I said, the next coming event next year, we're going to be focusing on this. So now I can't write that follow-up letter to Betsy and say, I know I told you about X. So that might be a point to put out there. We did receive, it was exciting, we did receive some new recurring donors through this event we did not have in previous years with Idaho Gives. We saw some folks from our community due to some press releases we had here with the purchase of the building, and again, some other partnerships with other businesses. We were able to get some press coverage. We saw some folks that have never connected with us connect during Idaho Gives and have become regular givers for us for that event, which has been really good. We didn't really attend any in-person events, but we did, where we operate our food pantry on Thursdays. We invited anybody who was interested from the community to come to the food pantry during our open hours on Thursdays, and we would give them a personal walkthrough, talk to them, answer questions. And we had a few folks that actually did that. That was kind of exciting. And they actually got to see firsthand the community that they were serving. So they actually got to see the people that were being connected by it, which for me on a personal level was good to hear people say, that's not who I thought the folks in our community who needed help were. I realized it was my neighbor. It was the person I work with. It was my kid's teacher. So that was really, it was a real personal moment for them. So that was kind of nice. What was my last question? Oh, did any import any new software? We were able to put those new folks into our database. I did appreciate Kevin's comment a moment ago about Bloomerang. The software we have is not designed for CRM stuff like this for nonprofits. It's more of a church-based thing. So this will allow us to really expand that, I hope. I'll dig into Bloomerang later. So I don't have, again, apologize, no fancy photos, no fancy slides, but that's pretty much us. There we go.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Carl. So I'm going to ask you the same question. If there's just one thing that you could implement out of your tips, which one of those would it be?
I would agree, it was the matching donations. That again really just drove that intercity camaraderie and competition that brought in larger dollars. And we're pushing the envelope this year. We're asking for 100 to 150,000 on our Idaho Gives Day. We're going after it. And we're utilizing businesses to do that. And we're utilizing the matching donor piece as our model to move that forward. So huge. And even $500 matching gets people talking. Doesn't have to be 5,000 or 10,000, you know.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah, go for it.
I'm so sorry, Betsy. This is Melissa with KTVB. Hey, I just wanted to point out, because I know that in the chat there was some questions about what is a human element. And I know Gary gave a little description, but I just wanted to point out that Carl, he gave a ton of really great examples of what the human element is in storytelling. How he mentioned, it was not only the people that benefited from their services, but those that were making those services possible, those in his organization that were donating their time, and then also showcasing to the viewer what their donations did for the community, right? So it's that end result of how the viewer getting involved is giving a positive impact to the community. All of those are great examples of human element.
Yeah, exactly. So bringing it around that the things that the media is looking for, all of your donors are probably looking for that human element too. So you can use all of these tips to go through for multiple channels, just fine tune it for who you're talking to. I had a question for you, Carl, because you talked about you did the thank you notes every single day. What was the turnaround on that? Did you like just put them all at the end of the day, or did you go through the day and do thank you notes?
Yeah, I actually did the beginning of the previous day. I just went through and said, okay, who's online, who gave what, boom, and just sent those right on out. And my office administrator was also the whip behind my motivation. She made sure I stayed on it because I said, I need someone to keep me on this. I've got enough in my wheelhouse to keep me busy. So I just waited for the day to get done and then just captured that and did it immediately right after that.
That's amazing. Like, kudos to you on that.
Okay.
That's a lot of work.
It was definitely worth it. And I think, just to kind of piggyback on what Melissa was saying about the human element, you get to underscore that piece one more time, and that just gets that hook in people, and you got them.
All right. We have about 5 minutes left. Thank you so much to all our presenters. If you have any questions for anyone, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you want to come off mute, you can. But yeah, now's the time to ask whatever you need.
I just have a quick question for Carl and Tina and others maybe on the call too. I think a lot of folks feel some anxiety about like competing for the same donor dollar, but my experience has been both when I was in Pocatello and just kind of chatting with folks around the sector and with donors, that the donor giving portfolio is often much bigger and broader than even we imagine in our own single organizations. So the more that we can kind of think about this as not so much a competition amongst one another, but more of an opportunity to introduce new folks to our mission, to get a piece of that donor's portfolio of giving. I think there's a big piece of pie there that is not quite infinite, but it's larger than we even imagined. I just wanted to see if Carl or Tina or others wanted to comment on that. That's kind of been my experience, that it's not really truly a zero-sum game, but there's lots out there.
I think that too, Kevin, coming from a philanthropy background, of there might be scarcity in when you apply for grants, but there's never scarcity when you're applying for donors or cultivating donors, because as we're talking about the last 2 generations of the greatest wealth getting transferred. There are so many vehicles to how that wealth is being transferred that different people need to give different ways, whether it's through required minimum distribution, whether it's through legacy. We have a lot of donors who are teaching their children philanthropy, and a piece like this is a great way to get a child involved, to say, let's put $25 towards this if it's something you can. We've got to get rid of the scarcity mentality in nonprofit.
Yeah. Well, and just realizing too that Idaho Gives is a statewide funding event. It's not just a regional event. But even beyond that, we have to remember that for our benefit, for a lot of our donor base, a lot of them moved out of state. And so they're on the other side of the country jumping on Idaho Gives at the office, and they're going, what's that all about? Well, let me tell you what Idaho Gives is. Well, I don't remember the number last year or 2 years ago when they said that at the end of the year, there was $1.6 billion left in philanthropic gift giving because they didn't know where to give it. So yeah, I think that idea of competition does exist, but just like Tina said, the donor base is infinite, and just having a conversation, you never know where it goes. Pitch a little vision and see what catches.
Yeah, I also think it's important to remember, donors are this kind of renewable energy source because people retire, but also new, millennials are coming into more wealth, and there's always a new kind of generation of folks coming up. As long as people keep having kids, obviously there's still new donors to be had. So there's always a fresh supply every year of people that haven't heard of your organization, haven't participated in giving in any meaningful way, and to capture their attention is the opportunity.
We had a question in the chat from Christina. Do you have any advice for a small Christian school? They're coming out of their infancy.
I can speak to a little bit about that. I will tell you, just encourage you to stay true to your values. One of my grant writers was working on a grant just recently, and it was like a $50,000 grant. And they wanted us to modify one of our values that had to do with faith in our end of it. And I said, no, we don't modify our values. We don't modify our vision or our mission. Well, we're going to walk away from $50,000. You're exactly right. Walk away from the $50,000. And being a faith-based organization, we know that when we say yes to God and no to the world, he kind of shows off, which he did, and just blessed our organization because we stayed true to that. So don't be afraid. In the nonprofit world, there are tons of resources out there for faith-based Christian schools and all kinds of stuff. And you've got my email on here. I can send you a link to a couple places that we have found funding for that is not state or federal, but just stay true to your values. Don't let people tell you that, well, you're going to reduce your funding because you're faith-based. Not true.
Yeah, and if you ever need reminding usually on that, please go back to your gift acceptance policy or review that before you go into any kind of funding agreement or arrangement. And that will keep you safe always.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Oh, Carl just put his email in the chat. Thank you, all of our presenters, and thank you, everyone, for everything you do across the state. We really appreciate you and you being here. And we'll see you next time at our next Idaho Gives training. Thanks all.